Alrighty, so today we're going to be dealing with the scenic designer and the costumer. Now, as we go into these roles, we've talked about director, we've talked about the producer. When you do your critiques, I'm going to be asking you to think about things from all these different vantage points. So kind of pay attention, and you can refer back to these chapters on what these people have to think about, what their job entails. So scenic designer, you got to start with, where is it set? Okay, so are we looking at a place in like Elizabethan time? Maybe it's, World War II. These are going to be very, very different in feel. And you got to set the tone. So if you've got something that's silly, like SpongeBob the musical, this is going to be very light, lots of bright colors, exciting, kind of kid focused. Whereas if you have something that takes place maybe in the afterlife, something that deals heavily with death, you're going to have a very different tone compared to SpongeBob, I would think. So you got to think about that tone and the style that you want for your production. And then, of course, the physical idea of where does it take place? Is it in a bar? Does it take place in a house? Are there lots of different places that it happens? With Wedding Singer the musical, we had 15 different locations. That can get very expensive, so we had to go with more of a canvas idea, very simplistic set pieces and props in order to symbolize where the action was taking place, to be more fiscally responsible. Our author obviously loves Death of a Salesman. Here it comes again. Willy Loman's life. He has scenes that take place in his house, his office, his driveway, and one concept might be to divide the stage as if they were parts of his mind. So this is his life, and his mind is divided into these places because that's how he categorizes parts of his life. And so you might create a set that divides up these spaces in such a way that it's symbolic of his mind. Just an example of a way you might deal with that, which is like the concept. So the director has a concept of what they want, and they have to work in tandem with the scenic designer. One is not more important than the other. They work together and want to make sure that it's cohesive, because the director's looking at making sure that the scenic design, the costume designs, the lighting designs, the choreography, all of it has to work together and not be fighting each other. Images and metaphors where appropriate. We did When a Monster Calls. When a Monster Calls is a show we did here this past year. The monster in the show is actually a tree. It's a yew tree. Well, the actor portrays, I guess, the spirit of this yew tree. And the stage itself was huge. It was almost like a stump of a tree, but it was ginormous, and all the actors could fit on it. And it had rings to show the rings of a tree. And if you looked up where the lights are, they had different angles and so forth, with fabric draped to symbolize the canopy of a tree. So not only were you seeing a show where the antagonist is a tree, but you actually are almost engrossed in inside of a tree. So just a metaphor, an example of a good metaphor and how you might stage things. Now, making sure that, again, the scenery coordinates with the other production elements. This right here, this link does not work anymore. If you're really interested, let me know. I will dig it up for you. It's not anything you're going to be tested on, just extra information. Oh, practical design problems. Now, when we did Evil Dead, the great horror, a cult classic horror, I wouldn't say it's great, a cult classic horror film, and made into a stage musical where the audience gets just sprayed with blood. I mean, we've got, people behind the set shooting people with it. We had tubes going through the stage to spray the audience. It has to be easily cleaned when you're going to do something like that. So something to keep in mind. If you did not know that Johnny Depp can sing, he can actually sing. Enjoy following this little link right here. My friends are actually his razor blades, and so it's a metaphor for the razor blades. Now, in Sweeney Todd, these razor blades have to squirt blood. Things to keep in mind. Your set's going to get messy. Make it cleanable, because you've got to clean it up for the next show. So solving problems like that. Physical aspects of design. Okay, this gets very artsy right here. Very artsy. 5 elements of design, if you will. A line. Okay, and this talks about how a line is actually a point that moves, or a dot that moves. And if you're going to make it thick, if you're going to make it curvy, like all kinds of things there. Mass. Something has mass, how it relates to the other elements around it, giving it scale. And then composition, the idea of balancing things. So you've got these objects, what the lines are like for it, what the mass is like for it, what the composition, does it equal out with other things around the set, the texture, I love the brick because that is utilized quite a bit in sets, or is it very smooth? There's all kinds of different things to consider there when you're designing a set. And of course, color. We talked about the colors with like SpongeBob are going to be bright, neon, crazy. Whereas if you're going to do Death of a Salesman, that's probably going to be more dull tones, a little more serious. Oh, yes, I do want to continue my session. Been in this book for a while today. Okay. Considering the placing of the action. So if you're going to design this intricate, crazy set, there's still got to be a place for the actors to move. They've got to be able to dance if they need to dance, or be able to just utilize the space. You can't take it up with too much set. So something to consider is the action. What has to happen? Are there fight scenes? We probably don't want a lot of sharp angles around. Establishing the mood. Is it fun and happy? Is it solemn and reflective? So establishing that mood. Reinforcing the theme. What is the theme, the idea, the overarching goal here? And so, like Sweeney Todd, you've got an idea of revenge. Okay, how can you work that into your set? Staging the story. Okay, physically, how are you going to do it? How is this going to work? For Mamma Mia, classically, you have two buildings, and a lot of the action happens in front of those. They do utilize doors and stairs, but it doesn't move. And sometimes I've seen it where it is a wagon that turns around. The different houses can turn. I've also seen it where it's stationary. But how the story is going to be staged, how the director plans to do the movement, you have to keep that in mind. Okay, and then I'm not going to insult your intelligence. These are important, though, the process for a scenic designer. Okay, so these are the things that they have to go through and think about. So when you get to that section of your critiques, this is a great place to come back, look through this. These are the things that the scenic designer is looking at, and you can think about, oh, how did I see those played out in the show that I watched? Some collaborators that they have to, make sure that they are working with and that everything is being kept streamlined. So again, the set is not taking over from the other elements. Some technology here for you. These are some great things, again, to come back for your critiques. What is a fly? What is a flat? A fly is a wall, perhaps, that comes in, or something that comes in. Or in Wicked, Glinda comes in a bubble. That's a fly because it literally comes in with her and it goes back out again. What is the scrim? What are hand props? The difference between a hand prop and a set prop. Wagons, things that can roll in and they roll back out, or roll in and stay. Just depends on the designer. Okay, so that's scenic design. Moving on to costume designer. So the costume establishes a lot of things. And now you can do shows with no costumes or just street clothes. I mean, but that says something too if you choose to go that direction, even if you go simple. But a costume can get very ornate. Immediately when you see a costume, let's just say, for example, Cinderella, you see the stepmother and stepsisters, you immediately know their position. You know that they have money, okay, or at least are pretending to. You know that they are females. They're classically in dresses. Occupation, probably don't have any because they don't look like they work, okay? If they're flamboyant or modest, you can play it so many different ways. If they're independent, and what the occasion is. Is it an everyday occasion for a wealthy person or not? Cinderella, again, you see her tattered rags, you know her position. You know that she's a girl. You know that she works for a living. These are all things that you know immediately when you see their costumes. All right, so the objectives, you're setting the tone. Again, I've seen Romeo and Juliet done modern. I've seen Romeo and Juliet done with classic Elizabethan costumes. I've seen it done where the Montagues and Capulets, the adults, are in Elizabethan costumes, but they're in white and black. The kids are in modern, and the whole stage is set up like a chessboard. You see how those work together. That was the scenic designer choosing a chessboard, and the costume designer, agreeing with that and creating chess pieces with the other characters, setting the children apart as more modern, because, of course, they have a more modern idea of forget this feud. So that was them working in tandem to make that happen. But that establishes a tone and a style, and it makes the audience relate to it differently. History, if we're going to do this historical, where is it set? Time period, oh my goodness, and costuming, time period is everything. We have to know our time period. It dictates everything. Indicate the nature of the individual character, their station. We talked about that. show relationships. A lot of times when you have a family group, especially in classic costuming, you're going to make like this group of people blues and greens. Maybe you'll make this group of people oranges and yellows to kind of tie this couple together, or tie this family together, or tie this group of friends together. You're going to choose colors that draw and automatically help you identify them as a group. In Newsies, the Newsies have very similar clothes because and you will see people from the Newsies from Queens have maybe more browns, and then you'll see those from Brooklyn maybe have more grays. They'll usually kind of group them together like that. Quick changes, individual needs. Oh my goodness, the quick change. Getting off stage, getting out of a costume into a costume, or a change on stage, such as when Cinderella goes into her ball gown, or the fairy godmother turns from the old hag into the beautiful enchantress. Those happen on stage. That is a very specific kind of costume, and you have to know that it's coming and prepare for it accordingly, and teach people how to do it. You have to have people who are skilled in getting people in and out of costumes, or know how to utilize a costume to make it work. Be consistent with production and other visual elements. Obviously, it's got to work in tandem with everything else. And you got to have a gimmick from Gypsy. I was actually in that, and I was one of the three. Well, there's no other way to say it. They're strippers, beyond their prime, as it were. One of them actually has an outfit that lights up. The other one has a horn that they have to be able to use and blow, and one is just a butterfly with wings. So these are costumes that work together, take extra time, but they're necessary for the show. Physical aspects of costume design, line, shape, silhouette. Again, that comes back to a lot of the period. Color, and fabric and accessories. The best thing I can say about, again, color, you're going to have brighter colors with brighter sets. You're going to tone your colors down maybe with a darker set, or you might have a concept where the set is really dull, but you want the costumes really bright so that the characters stand out, or reverse it. But it has to complement. It's got to work with the context. Also, if you pick a fabric that's blue, you got to see it with the lights. I have seen people pick out fabrics that are green, and they went out, put it under a certain light, and it turned purple. And then all of a sudden your couples don't match, and it didn't work. It was horrible. We had to start all over again. But that's just one example of why it's all got to work together, and you got to be prepared. Functions. I like to think of when I costume an actor, I'm helping them get even deeper into their character. When they step into a costume, they should be even more the character, discover more about themselves than they were before. It's an aid for the artist. And through that, establishing the mood, reinforcing the theme for the actor and for the audience, and the process of the costume design. You got to go into it with an idea. This is not something you can wing, that's for sure. Okay, some more things here. Won't insult your intelligence, but these are things that the costume designer has to think about. Great place for you to come back and refer to during your critique. All right. Makeup, hairstyles, masks. Those are usually fall under the responsibility of the costumer as well. And here are some of the collaborators you have to deal with. So, shop supervisor, that's me. You got to buy, you got to get things dry cleaned afterwards, learn about specialty crafts when you've got something that maybe has to be specially made that you don't deal with all the time. Bring in somebody with that knowledge. Some good terminology here for you to be familiar with. Go through that and take a look. Okay, so that is the scenic designer and the costume designer. Here is your quiz. Again, there's no assignment. You guys take care, and we'll see you in Chapter 9.